Everyone lately is talking about how Twitch is wrecking people with ad revenue. All of these big streamers are losing their ad revenue money, coining it as an adpocalypse. And it's all thanks to guys like Hassan Piker, by way of Dan Clancy, the CEO of Twitch, and the horrendous mismanagement of Twitch and its lack of consistency. Merriam-Webster defines consistency as the ability to be asserted together without contradiction, parts working toward a similar goal. This thought of consistency then lends to a certain level of expectation. You expect that when you go to the grocery store, that the people working there would all have some kind of a uniform, or have a name tag on their shirt. Stoplights in the United States have a red light on the top, a yellow in the middle, and a green light on the bottom. Our laws are probably the most common form of consistency that we know of, and while they are argued all the time, it's understood that if you run a red light and get a ticket, there's a level of consistency in the fining and punishment of someone based on how many former infractions they've had, how fast they were going, how reckless they were driving, etc. Even in the things we dislike, like taxes. We pay those every year even though we all hate them, but that has its level of consistency too. The point is that while there is an abundance of examples of consistency all around us, levels of expectation, whether we like them or not, those expectations are not being met with Twitch. And that is leading us down this slippery slope. And it all points back to its CEO, Dan Clancy. When it comes to Twitch, there's a set of rules. These rules are called the terms of service. In the TOS are rules about things you can and cannot say, and things you are and are not allowed to do, in plain English. For example, someone utters a homophobic slur. And please, this isn't about what is woke or not. This is about what Twitch says is okay and not okay. Back in 2019, Destiny and Mo both got a 30-day suspension for a homophobic slur. Aiden Ross had the exact same thing happen to him in 2022. But when Nick Merckx was banned for using a transphobic slur, everyone assumed it would be the same 30 days. Consistency, right? No, 10. Then there was the infamous Gideon ban. And while he didn't necessarily use a slur, he did what was referred to as a hate raid, goading his viewership to go bash on Pokimane prior to Gideon sending all of his viewers to her channel in January of 2022. The original punishment was 14 days, which was then upgraded to a permanent status, only to then have it lifted over 800 days later once Gideon said he found God. Lack of consistency. Or how about the instance on September 15th when Fallen Shadow, a VTuber on the platform, got a 30-day suspension for self-harm because she got drunk on stream, something that countless people have done. Hell, my good friend Batty revels in drinking on stream, as do many of us. Up until now, it was understood that you weren't allowed to drink to passing out, but being drunk was fine. Lack of consistency there. But the biggest, most inconsistent thing of all is the way that Twitch has been conducting itself in regard to the Israel-Palestine conflict. On one side of this fence, you have people that are pro-Israel and believe their cause is just in trying to root out Hamas. And on the other, you have the pro-Palestinian people that believe the Palestinians have a right to their freedom and independence from Israel and its overreaching government encroaching on Palestine's claim to Gaza. Obviously, this oversimplifies a very old and very nuanced conflict between the two groups, but when it comes to Twitch, there are mouthpieces on both sides of this fence, and some are significantly more bold than others. And Twitch, along with Dan Clancy, has done nothing more than really fan the flames. Now, I want to remind everyone, this isn't going to be a place for political discourse on which side of this argument is right. We're not about that. This is a conversation about that key phrase, consistency, and why I don't believe it's being applied. The largest players that have been involved in this arguably are Hassan Piker and his associated folks like Frogan, a guy named Dan Can't Stream, and everyone's favorite $2 steak aficionado, Asmongold. But even here, this isn't really about the folks at the helm of the arguments that they're trying to make in support of their socio-political leanings either. More so, it's about the effect they're having on the platform as a whole. For years, the inflammatory nature of political mouthpieces on Twitch, like that of Hassan and Frogan, have become more and more bold over time. This began to hit a boiling point over the last few months, just prior to TwitchCon. And just so that we're all on the same page, everything I show you here, regardless of your own personal beliefs or leanings, all technically are violations of the Twitch terms of service. You can go read them. Hassan has even gone so far as to say Hezbollah, a terrorist organization whose own bylaws state that their ultimate goal is, in part, to destroy the United States, wasn't an organization that he had a problem with.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say. But they are a terrorist organization.
I do not like them then. Because, hell, even a couple days ago, I was hanging out with my buddy Hassan, And this guy unironically put a terrorist propaganda music video on and then left the room.
He also interviewed a Yemenis Houthi pirate that looked like Luffy from One Piece and gushed about how cool it was that he watched and was familiar with the anime. By the way, the Houthis, and specifically this guy flew this helicopter onto this ship in order for several armed hijackers to overtake it. And it should be noted here that the last time Hassan Piker saw even so much as a timeout was on December 13th of 2021 for using the word cracker. His suspension was 7 days. This starts to begin a timeline toward what people believe is an adpocalypse. October 7th, 2024, Twitch puts out a PSA via the Twitch support Twitter account to say that they made a big mistake. They state that email signups, only email signups for Twitch's platform, had inadvertently been blocked for both Israel and Palestine since October of 2023, stating, "We did this to prevent uploads of graphic material related to the attack and to protect the safety of users." However, this was quickly debunked by the content creator Dan Can't Stream, where it was proven that mobile signups from not only him, but many other members of the Israeli community were unable to create accounts on mobile either. The organization Stop Anti-Semitism even got a hold of an image of Twitch's code showing that Israel had been completely blocked, which in turn then got the attention of the Anti-Defamation League. October 15th, Asmongold goes on stream to say that he doesn't care about the Palestinian genocide and calls Palestinians inferior people. Asmon is given a 14-day suspension. So if you're paying attention to the scoreboard, there seems to be an awful lot of points getting put on the board for Palestine and pro-Palestine folks. Not so much the case on the pro-Israeli front. Lack of consistency. October 19th, it's revealed that Frogan, a partnered Palestinian streamer living in the USA that is most known for being one of Hassan's mods and the winner of the Rising Star Award at the 2023 Streamer Awards, says that she hopes all US soldiers get PTSD if they don't regret their time in service. And yes, this is still a Twitch TOS violation because it denigrates service veterans. It is also revealed that during a prior tipathon that she held, if reaching a goal of $6,250, she was going to, on 9/11, bake a cake as a recreation of the Twin Towers and fly toy planes into the cakes, reenacting 9/11. During the TwitchCon weekend in October, Frogan, flanked by several other Arab streamers, do a podcast live on stage at TwitchCon. Broadcast as a main event both in person and on the live platform. They do a segment where they rate popular streamers based on how Arab they are, the worst of them being rated loves Sabra, quote unquote, which they then attempted to defend by saying it was bottom of the barrel hummus. However, during the podcast, one of the podcast members stated they knew that the Sabra rank was intended to be derogatory. It stands to note here that Sabra is recognized as a Jewish brand of hummus and refers to someone born in Israel. Frogan and the rest of the members of the podcast receive a 30-day ban. This would be the first time that any widespread anti-Israel sentiment was met with a suspension. However, this was not done cleanly and it was not done alone. This was the result of a meeting with the Anti-Defamation League that specifically spoke about this particular event, which then led Twitch to modifying its terms of service to refer to the word Zionist as being hate speech, unless speaking about it in the political sense. October 31st, Twitch announces the platform will have a new politics and sensitive social issues tag that is required of anyone speaking about political topics or other sensitive social issues, stating in the statement, this can also help advertisers better align their ads with content that reflects their brand values. Now, I want you to pay careful attention to that statement. November 1st, Dan Clancy writes a blog post reiterating that hate and harassment have no place on Twitch. Fast forward to today. In the last week, there have been many streamers noting that they've been losing ad revenue like crazy. On November 12th, Kaysan, a creator with FaZe, says he was demonetized because he had Iran as a tag for his stream. He is Iranian. He was never told why. He had to seek out an answer from his partner manager. Other content creators like Stable Ronaldo and Lacey say that they've lost 80% of their ad revenue to the Stock Guy, who noted that his ad revenue was down 95%. And then once removing the election tag from his stream, noticed that his ad revenue completely recovered. This action is new for Twitch. They've never really ratcheted down on stuff like this before. It's never been this nuanced, but arguably it should have been. Why? Because advertisers are getting smarter. Everyone knows that money makes the world go round, and in the entertainment business, the real money is in advertising. Movies with product placement equal dollars. TV networks make mega bank off of major sporting events, upwards of tens of millions of dollars for large events like the Super Bowl. Online entertainment is no different. The advertising revenue generated on sites like YouTube and Twitch is major. And of course, advertisers have to spend money to be on those platforms. But most advertisers don't want to be associated with polarizing or controversial content. They shy away from these types of things because of the perception of backlash, sometimes of which can be very, very real. Bud Light did a now infamous can design to celebrate a trans influencer, Dylan Mulvaney, back in early April, whose backlash caused sales of Bud Light to plunge 26% by July compared to the year before, with conservative figureheads like Kid Rock calling for a boycott of the brand while shooting at cases of beer with an MP5. This is why advertisers are wary, and justifiably so. Richard Lewis, an independent investigative journalist, released an article 2 days ago that cites a Twitch employee provided him with a list of 11 large corporations that have now suspended their advertising funding, stating that the recent steps that Twitch had been taking to categorize its most polarizing or political streams was not going to be good enough. Richard states he was shown correspondence between Amazon executives and Twitch stating that Twitch downplayed the severity of the infractions and that Twitch was not showing sufficient concern, and described Dan Clancy's response as being significantly inadequate. Most of the companies maintained their anonymity, but one company did get named, Chevron, whose logo can be seen in the background of the clip where content creators are being rated from Arab to Sabra. Chevron was the main sponsor of TwitchCon. Chevron also supplies all of Israel's natural gas, which accounts for 70% of Israel's electricity production. Needless to say, Chevron was pissed. One Twitch employee stated, having their logo in the background of a clip being used as an example of anti-Semitism prompted some very awkward conversations. I'm sure they were. Richard then goes on to state that while the tagging system for these channels has been good enough for some brands, others have stated that this does not address the core issue. And I have to agree here. There is an obvious dichotomy between the social aspect of what Twitch is versus the monetary responsibility that Twitch has. At its core, Twitch is ultimately a marketing platform. Streamers, content creators all market themselves. They want to become more famous because that makes them more money. And once they're large enough, they get to market their brand via other brands to other people. The most effective people at doing this put on a show, and they tend to do not a whole lot of political leaning or polarizing content. And in turn, the folks regarded as being the least brand risky end up getting bigger contracts. Twitch is in the same boat, which is an important thing to recognize when its CEO was hired into the position to make Twitch a profitable enterprise, something Twitch has never been. It's kind of a duh statement to realize that in order to become profitable, you have to make the site attractive to advertisers. Streamer revenue and subsplits are not going to be the thing that ultimately makes Twitch a profitable business. Advertisers, for better or worse, are the only realistic avenue by which to make this happen. And Kick, by comparison, is not a good example because it is a loss leader for stake. On the other side of this dichotomy is the freedom of speech. Many people believe that social media platforms like Twitch should be rather ungoverned. Let people say what they want and let the court of public opinion weed out the undesirables. And while I commend this line of thinking, and to an extent I agree, this is only realistic if businesses and brands spending money on advertising do so without concern for public appearance. And well, that just isn't how the world works. Right now, Chevron is thinking they made a mistake slapping their logo on TwitchCon's walls. They worry their brand identity could be seen as them promoting something anti-Israel, which means they then have to go have conversations with people about how they aren't, a position they wouldn't have been in if Dan Clancy had nipped the political edgelord stuff in the bud when it started getting out of control, which is something, as of now, he still has not done. The reality of this situation is that if Dan doesn't start doing something to curb the overreach of people that gain their viewership and virility by espousing on ultra-polarizing topics, the poison will start to leak into categories outside of his neat little label containers, which will then just inevitably end up clipped and shipped off to places like Twitter and live stream fails to be shared, pointed at, laughed about, and ridiculed by all onlookers until content creators that aren't among the uber huge like XQC, who have already earned generational wealth, have to then go find real jobs. On a macro level, most content creators on Twitch right now have not seen a decrease in their ad revenue at all, myself included. Pirate Software even went so far as to show what his analytics were looking like in a tweet that he made yesterday, stating that he hasn't seen any decrease in ad revenue at all. But again, he's someone that's more brand safe. But people on the agency side that deal with advertisers specifically are having conversations with people like Devin Nash saying the opposite. And folks like Devin Nash state that this could be indicative of a second coming of an actual adpocalypse, like what we saw back in 2017 on YouTube, which saw major brands leave its platform, such as Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Johnson & Johnson, and many, many others. Twitch has a unique culture in which everyone tries to push the TOS envelope. And they've kind of bred a culture in which everyone partially feels as though they can say nearly whatever they like while simultaneously trying to play victim to the outcome. Things like Frogan saying labeling people as loves Sabra just meant that they didn't eat good hummus. Or VTubers that will take the time to slow zoom in on the butt of one of their VTuber models, if only then to cry out on Twitter for why they ended up catching a suspension. It reminds me of the quote, "No singular snowflake ever feels responsible for an avalanche." And I think that statement has never felt more fitting than when describing Twitch, its content creators, and its leadership currently scratching their heads about why the money is drying up.